Welcome to Play Pause Turn. In this podcast, we discuss all things to do with TV, films, games and literature. We give our thoughts on the media we've been enjoying, old or new, and comment on anything topical. Now, our hosts today are myself, John, and Alex, Mark and Bobby. And today's podcast subject is the latest series, or one of the latest series, from Disney Plus, which is Obi-Wan Kenobi. So we'll start off with our usual intro question. We'll have a little discussion that's non-spoilery and then go into the meat of the subject. So the intro question, and I'm going to go alphabetically tonight. So what sort of retired Jedi would you be, Alex?
So I have in my mind a mix of two. Well, I'm a mix of a Jedi and a non-Jedi, which is original OG Obi-Wan. So this is the original Obi-Wan.
What, prequel Obi-Wan or Clone Wars Obi-Wan?
Prequel.
All right.
Prequel. I mean, they're all right, but anyway, a mix between that and Saw Gerrera. I haven't got all the way through Clone Wars, so it's. But yeah, I'd like to be, because what I loved was Saw Gerrera's crankiness in Rogue One, and he had this like mask that he put on, and it had a real what's the word? Little Shop of Horrors vibe. If you remember the dentist from Little Shop of Horrors, just
and
loving
also Blue Velvet.
That's it. Yeah. So it had a real vibe to it. I loved it. But yeah, so I feel like I'd just be cranky and big and probably have one leg. Because you've got to have a proper swagger if you're old. Jedi. His
rebreather and his wonky leg are explained if you watch Star Wars Rebels.
Okay. I need to get
there's a young Saw Gerrera in that, and there's a reason why he's all banged up.
Cool. I know I have to do that, but to do that, I'm going to need to have like a month-long sabbatical because there's no other time I'll find for it. So
awesome, Bobby. What would you be if you were a retired Jedi? What sort of retired Jedi would you be?
I'd be the Jedi version of the Equalizer, the Denzel Washington.
Obi-Wan Woodward. Yeah.
No, the Denzel Washington.
Version. Right. Sorry.
So, okay. How do you make your Jedi name? What's the formula?
Oh, it's something like the last person you spoke to, and then your cat's name or something, isn't it?
Yeah, but I would be, kind of quite incognito, so like people wouldn't really know that I'm a Jedi. But then I would find out about, kids being harmed or some woman being bashed up by her husband or something, and then I would go and equalize them.
With what, lightsaber?
Well, it depends really, because I would also be the type of Jedi that would have studied both sides of the Force, so I would know the dark side as well. So I could really choose how I might decapitate them. I might take their hands. It depends on what they've done, John. Really.
I mean,
I might crush their heart.
Yeah, I mean, Equalizer was quite morally, I would say, vague, wasn't he? Really, in his actions, they were kind of separate from the law, weren't they? So I can see what you're saying.
Right.
Exactly.
Mark, how about you? What sort of Jedi would you be?
Well, I think that the people of Tatooine have been through quite a lot recently, and they live on a really barren, dull planet, and a lot of them are getting their hands cut off and blown up.
By the Jedi Equalizers?
Yeah, the Jedi Equalizers. There's people like Bobby there nicking their stuff, and so I think I would be like the Derren Brown of retired Jedis. So I would do tricks of the mind for everyone, and I'd be like a court jester just to cheer everyone up. I think I would be that. So I'd be the Derren Brown of Tatooine. And,
I mean, I like the fact that you've written your Jedi version of Derren Brown. You call yourself Doreen Brown.
Yes, I did. That's yes, typos. What can you do? They're a fact of life.
Is that the Rasta version of Derren Brown?
It is the Rasta version, as you know.
So you'd be one of those white Rastas on Tatooine.
As you know, I'm an expert on rap music and grime music. So yes, I'd be the Rasta Derren Brown of Tatooine, spreading joy and cheering up kids whose parents have been mutilated. So yeah.
What colour would your lightsaber be?
That's a good question, actually. What colour would it be?
Don't say pink.
I mean, I guess it's Darren. What can I say? It's arty. Like
I mean, the clue's in the
Brown.
name, isn't it?
I mean, it
Really?
has to be brown, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
I was going to say pink or brown. I suppose, pink or brown, which one? I don't know. I think I'll go for brown.
Oh my god, this is going to be a long podcast.
For anyone listening who listens regularly, you'll realise that Mark and I have not been on the same pod for quite some time, so be prepared, folks.
Yeah.
Well, if you're,
my friend,
Bobby, if you're
You
running
too.
around equalising people on Tatooine, and we've got Doreen Brown over here with his brown.
Actually, could I
coloured
just say,
lightsaber.
because there was a bit of libel or slander, I can't remember which one's which there. I wouldn't be stealing
theft.
things from innocent people. I'd be taking out, all of the bad people, Mark.
but how does the Equalizer survive then if he's equalising people who doesn't get paid for it?
Well, no, because then the people that I'm equalising, the bad people, I would just take their credits, wouldn't I?
Oh, so you are taking it then? That's what I said.
Yeah, but from
I mean,
bad
has
people,
confounded
the way
you
you're
for French
saying
genius
it.
there,
Okay,
Bobby.
so that's what I was
Yeah,
saying.
but bad people, Mark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. John, this is the part of the pod you can cut when you're.
Yeah. Well,
when
I'd like to say
when you're
if
favourite.
Bobby's around, some sort of Star Wars cut purse with his lightsaber, and you're there with your brown lightsaber entertaining the crowds, I'll probably hiring you in my bar as a Jedi, retired Jedi. I would be undercover working as a barman on either Dai or Nar Shaddaa, I think, and hiding the fact as a Jedi. However, finger on the pulse with all the people coming through, all my contacts, so that I could keep in touch with the other Jedi and the Jedi Underground, as is kind of referenced in the thing we're meant to be talking about in this podcast, but also using the Force to ensure my staff don't drink the profits. Now, I say this from experience because I used to run pubs, so that was one of the most infuriating things. So that would be my role.
That's the thing. So I would. So
profit
John
will
and
cut their
I,
heads off.
we would be in touch because John would have my number, or I don't know what they use, pages or whatever in the galaxy, and then when one of his staff
Communicators.
gets exactly. So when one of your staff gets caught drinking the profits, you just subtly tell me because there are lines that you will not cross, Master Evans, but I will, right? And I'll just come
Oh, so
and cut
good
their
cop,
tongues
bad
out.
cop.
That'll teach them. I'll come and cut their tongues out. That'll teach them a lesson.
Wow.
I think we need to swiftly move on now.
Yeah, I think
It's
Bob's
gone
got-
dark.
Yeah, he's gone to the dark side already. We've not even got it. We've not even started. on the dark
I'm
side.
getting into this. I'm handing in my resignation tomorrow. I'm gonna go and do this instead.
So we did discuss the first couple of episodes in a recent podcast, but we've got to the end of the season. So now we're going to canvass your general thoughts. At this stage, no spoilers, although, I don't know why you listen to this if you haven't seen it, but there you go. What were your general thoughts? So again, alphabetically, Alex.
Okay, so I really enjoyed it. I think, was it predictable in places? Yes, absolutely. Was there quite a bit of fan service going on? Yes, there was. Did I mind that? No, I didn't mind it. And that's because I felt like the story was well linked together. Were there flaws? Absolutely. But I really enjoyed the characters, and it was great to see Ewan McGregor back on screen. So I really enjoyed that. And it even included an annoying droid. So what more can you want?
Was that the little floaty droid?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not Leia. Lola.
Luna?
Lola. Yes.
That's it, Lola the
Okay.
droid. So yeah, it was. So I think it ticked a lot of boxes.
Bobby, how about you?
I really, really liked it. And, as Alex said, it wasn't perfect, but so what? It was Star Wars. And we got more Star Wars, and I love Star Wars. So from that point of view, it's great. And it was just 6 episodes of guilty pleasure for me. Ewan McGregor is one of my favourite actors across the entire Star Wars movie thing. I thought he was definitely the standout from the prequel trilogy, and it was just really lovely to see him come back, reprise the role, and just see him on screen actually wielding a lightsaber again, because that was the other thing I loved about it, is the return of great choreographed lightsaber fights, because I've always said that the prequels had the best lightsaber battles, and this just brought more of that. So yeah, I was very happy with it.
Okay, and Mark, or just general thoughts before we go into more depth and spoiler material.
Yeah.
What are
Sorry, I
your
need to
thoughts on
take a
the series?
Valium or something before he starts.
I've
Come on,
not
Bobby,
said
be fair.
anything yet. Be fair. I was very disappointed with it. I thought it was too predictable, lackluster, and lazy. I think it relied far too much on nostalgia, and that's not always a bad thing, but there was too much of it on this. Everything to me seemed very either rushed or just not thought through. Whether or not they had deadlines, I don't know. The plot and some of the character changes just didn't make any sense to me, and I thought the whole thing was a mess. Saved in some parts by McGregor's performance, but overall I was very, very disappointed with it, considering how good it could have been.
We've got to remember that obviously you're quite a fan, aren't you, Mark? So this isn't just like somewhat coming from someone who doesn't care for Star Wars, is it?
No, I love it. I love Star Wars, and I'm happy to argue the toss on it. You know, we've gone down the Last Jedi line. The prequels, yes, you can sort of moan about them, and you've got every right to. There are some really terrible bits in that as well, but some very good bits. But at least they have a sense of fun. But this, it was just so lethargic for me and dull, and considering what they could have done and the amount of material they have and backstory and history, there's just no excuse to, in my opinion, make something so flaccid. Really, I just thought it was just such a massively missed opportunity, and it just did the same old thing, but worse somehow.
I mean, the problem they have, Mark, is they tried, and we've had a long discussion about this. I'm not going to open this can of worms, but they tried to do something different with The Last Jedi, and that got a big backlash with a large proportion of the fans. A lot of people like that film, and myself including, but I know you didn't. So I wonder if they went into this series knowing what's better for our general look here for Disney's and their approach to Star Wars. Is it one that's trying new things, or are we going to make sure we just hit those hooks for the fans? And we know the fans who can afford Disney Plus are the ones who were around 30 years ago as well. So I think that it must have been really hard for them. I think was this filmed during lockdown?
It was filmed last year, so partly. Yeah,
so I think it's. I mean, you know, you can address this later on as well, Mark, in your other comments. But I think saying it's lazy was probably a little bit unfair, because they probably had a lot of very, very tricky, very challenging restrictions to deal with in the first place. And I wouldn't be surprised if the there you go. Film began on May the 4th, 2021. May the 4th. There you go. I wonder if some of the writing was they were forced to write in certain ways because of lockdown, and maybe that involved less characters on the screen at one time. Although, you know, looking at like the locations like Dayu, that doesn't seem to be correct. Or maybe they filmed the crowded scenes nearer this side of the pandemic. I don't know. I mean, we will never know that. I do think also, and Bobby mentioned this before, and when we were chatting about this before the podcast, that there are a lot of people doing a lot of hard work here to create something special. Sometimes things don't hit the mark, whether people work hard on them or not. I think we've got to be very careful about saying it's lazy.
Well, I say lazy in the writing. Obviously, the people, like the production staff, obviously everyone's making as much effort as well. My complaint mainly about this, which we'll get into, is the plot and the writing. So, our production values look good. We can go into all that. I don't doubt that people worked hard on it, but it doesn't matter how hard that people work and stuff. If you haven't got a coherent plot and a good story and a good script, then you're sort of doomed to you're doomed to failure, really. So that's my problem with it.
So I think this is my favourite Star Wars spin-off so far. I actually enjoyed it more than Mandalorian. But I think because of my age and what I like in Star Wars, that, you know, I am that demographic that they're going to try and please in that respect. So I think it's interesting. We've got two different views here, but we need to sort of pick this apart. So let's go into more depth and enter spoiler territory.
Mm-hmm.
So since we have been talking about the flaws, let's get into that first of all. I think we start with the negatives and then finish with the positives. That's really a good way of doing it. So, Alex, what did you think did not work with this series?
So I think one of the challenges is that as we've all grown up and we've seen some slightly more mature versions of Star Wars, we have to remember that it's still a family film. And I think like some of the, while the sequences are really good, there wasn't a lot of blood and guts. There were a couple of instances, but it wasn't. There was just nothing there. And I feel like the premise of saving Leia itself is a little bit flawed, because we know she's fine. Like there can't be any issues with young Leia, because we see her later on. And I think initially that kind of did turn me off a little bit, because it was you knew what the end result was going to be. But as I got into the characters, it was a little bit easier to sort of forget that and just focus on what was happening. I do get, and we'll talk a lot more about plot later, but I do get the lazy writing part. There were definitely scenes that almost they looked like they were written on the back of a napkin, like the Leia running away on that planet. I mean, it feels like, honestly, they spent no more than 2 minutes going, do you know what, this is what we'll do, and then they had to someone had to fill that in and turn that into a scene. So yeah, there was some bits like that didn't work for me. I think.
Do you think?
Oh, go on.
Sorry, Alex. Do you think perhaps that the whole Save Leia arc in this story was basically to show her that she's dealt with dangerous situations, and she's dealt with sitting and being tortured before, and that kind of adds to her character that we know from the older films. Yeah,
well, I think it does add some texture to it, but I think it adds texture probably to the next episode, the next series of this, rather than actually within the plot of this one here. I think it was just a device, and it didn't. I don't think it furthered much. It was our vehicle for how we got how Obi-Wan got around the places and got to see parts of things. It was that, rather than, I really need to see some growth from Leia. We did, but that wasn't the primary thing. And I guess it makes sense, because Obi-Wan is quite a selfless character. He doesn't focus on himself very often. And I feel like, to make it just solely about him wouldn't have worked. But I think it's difficult, because with someone so young, it's then just about what can you do with that aged character, and actually did it really help? And we'll come on to whether we think it did or not. But I think it was one of those. It felt divisive for me. I felt like I could see people switching off, by some of this. But anyway, I think partly that's because we've also had our appetite whet. Because we've seen some of the trailer for Andor, for example, that looks really good, and it hopefully will sort of really scratch that itch of some of the meatier things. And I think that's awesome, but I think we have to remember that Obi-Wan, this is not that series, and I think once you've got that, I think it's okay.
Okay, that's interesting. Some good points there. Thank you, Bobby. What about you? What didn't work for you in this series?
Well, I think firstly, I just want to start by saying I think we have to remember that this show's called Obi-Wan. It's not called Reva. It's not called Leia. It's not called Young Luke or whatever, or Grand Inquisitor. It is called Obi-Wan, and I didn't find much wrong with it. I really hope Mark's internet's frozen and he can't hear me right now. I didn't find much wrong with it, but then I don't know if that's because I had actually been looking forward to this series for a very long time. And I think as a child of the original trilogy, and I did really like the prequel trilogy, because again, when we got the first trailer for The Phantom Menace, I remember watching that, in like 160 by 360p, like really bad resolution, on a 386 computer. But it was Star Wars, and it was coming back, and I no longer had to sort of shut my eyes and sort of dream and try and visualise books and stuff like that. So I don't know if my view of this series is somewhat kind of clouded or obscured by that. But I didn't find too much wrong with it overall. I think if you had to push me on it, then I would say that Reva was probably the most jarring thing for me. And it's not the actor. I think she did a great job with what she was given. She was terrific, actually. But there were obviously a lot of kind of flaws in the way they wrote her character motivations and so on. Because, like, are we in spoiler territory yet?
We are, and I think Mark is going to pick this apart. I mean, there's a lot of bullet points under Mark's, so
Okay,
we might want to sort of address them one by one to help him out. But I know what you're saying.
I mean, I'll go very light on this, and then I'll hand over to Mark. But there were things that she was hell bent on. It turns out, obviously, that she's going after Darth Vader, and that's this whole thing. You know, she was one of the younglings in the Jedi Temple. I heard somewhere someone said that when Anakin stabbed her, she was possibly healed by Grogu, because he survived that slaying of younglings as well. But then her motivation is to go and get revenge for that by killing Darth Vader. So she goes through all the trouble of becoming an Inquisitor, getting really close to him. She spends 10 years or whatever it is at his side. And then he never realises that or senses that sort of darkness within her, which is, another thing to talk about probably. She gets stabbed again. How she manages to survive getting stabbed twice, I've got no idea, because there's no one around to sort of force heal her or whatever. And her way of avenging all of her Jedi brothers and sisters by then rampaging through the galaxy with the Inquisitors, slaughtering Jedi, slaughtering families and children, cutting innocent people's hands off and stuff, makes totally no sense whatsoever. And then
maybe she's the Equalizer.
Yeah, but don't. She's not associated with my brand of equalising. Okay,
sorry.
All right. Just make that very clear. I'm a good equaliser, unless you've been bad. And then towards the end, when she fails to kill Darth Vader, but then she realises that he's got a son, she then decides to go after the son that she knows that he doesn't know survived and murder him. And alright, at the end, she redeems herself and that sort of thing. But then it's like, after that, then where is there for the character to go? I don't really see where there is anywhere for her to go. So that was probably the overall jarring thing for me for the whole thing. But that's me just, really trying really hard to pull something out so that I can answer the question, I guess. Mark, over to you. I need a break for half now.
Well, Bobby's just nicked half of my points that I wrote on the on the pre-chat.
Well, I think we should talk.
Yeah,
talk through it.
But that means that, Mark, that means that you and I actually do have some common ground on this.
No, I'm keeping
okay, look, Mark, start at the top. Let's work our way through this. Come on.
No, it's fine. So, I think Bobby has said a lot of good things there. So, the first thing I would say in regards to the Reaper stuff is, again, where's the morality in all of this as well? So, Bob is completely spot on when he says that she's been killing and maiming for the last 10 years, and we're supposed to accept that as some kind of justification for her actions, which I don't really understand. And then
let me address that first of all. Then,
well, can I just finish and then feel free to come back to that one? And then she's not really redeemed. Okay, Obi-Wan says, "Oh, you did well. You've redeemed." I mean, her redemption is that she didn't kill a defenseless child after all the murders that she's done. I don't see that as particularly like redeeming at all. What, she chased a child in the desert, was about knocked him out, was about to kill him and decided not to. Somehow she's like cured and absolved of all of the sins that she's done in the last 10 years. No. And I think this is a problem in writing with Disney. This is the same thing with Wanda. We talked about Doctor Strange, good film. Like Wanda enslaved a whole town, and somehow like she's like the victim on this. I don't understand where the moral compass is on this show and these films at the moment that Disney is sending us, are providing. So I don't understand all of that. Reva must have had ample time the last 10 years to have gone one-on-one with Vader and to kill him, and she chooses a time when she's behind him. And even the opportunity she does isn't the best opportunity in speaking to him. She has much better opportunities earlier on in the series to do it. So it's just poorly written. But we'll go through some of the things that I'm moaning about as well, unless anybody wants to come back on that. Sorry.
Well, with the Reva thing, what I've done is I've tried to think of what her motivations would be after seeing your comments, and I'm thinking maybe, I mean, people who have gone through the traumatic situation she's gone through and who are seeking revenge at this level probably don't have a firm grip on reality. They're probably, they're in a bad place, and I'm wondering if, a lot of people make these sort of decisions in life where I'm going to get my revenge, and whether it's incels on the internet who shoot people in schools or whatever. I think she's lost the plot a bit, and to her rationale is I'm going to go deep undercover and get him eventually, no matter what I do on the way there. And perhaps she doesn't even believe that she is salvageable. Maybe she was hoping to go down with Vader when she took him down. So I think maybe from the point of view of the writers, they thought Reva is this kind of loose cannon who wants to kill Vader, doesn't care who gets in the way before it's done. And she's so desperate to get revenge, when she can't do it to Vader, she goes to the son, the sins of the father and all that. So I wonder if that's what they were thinking. Obviously, to come to a point about writing, that wasn't made clear in the series enough.
No.
And maybe time constraints for the series, that sort of thing. We could have had maybe 3 seasons of Obi-Wan with more depth of Reva's story. But, in this day and age where we have to zip through TV shows to keep our viewers interested, that's not going to happen. So that's my take, but it could be completely wrong. What's your next point, Mark? So moving down the list.
So yeah, and actually, I just want to echo what Bobby said about the actress as well. I feel really sorry for her, because apparently she's like a really good actress. She's won awards and stuff. So
Moses Ingram.
Yeah, I'm sure she's great. Yeah, I've not seen her in anything else, I have to say, but and she's getting a lot of hate online, which is just wrong. And
have you seen the Queen's Gambit, Mark?
Yeah, she in that, is she? That's the chess one, isn't it?
That was her.
She's very good in that. Yeah, she's very good in that.
Yeah, I didn't catch. Right, so she is. Yeah, so she's really good. So I just think in this she's just served by a really bad script and probably got miscast. But she's in Queen's Gambit. Of course she is. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, so there you go then. She's very good. I think she's just been given a really sort of bad hand here as well. But I'll go through the big problem for me is contradictions and sort of lack of common sense in some of the stuff that we get in this series. So the first episode, we see Obi-Wan and he's sort of like working, isn't he, on the meat thing, whatever he's doing. He's buried the lightsabers. He's not using the Force in any way. He doesn't look like he's been training at all, even though he was told to by Yoda at the end of Revenge of the Sith. So he's not using his powers. And then he has this scene with Owen, and then he kind of sort of bemoans Owen for not telling him if Luke is showing, and he says that Luke has to be trained. So if Luke has to be trained, why haven't you been using your powers, or why aren't you using your training, like to train yourself in the last few years? And then we get the Jedi that is nearly abducted in the first episode as well, who's eventually killed and hung. And Obi-Wan says, "Oh yeah, just go in the desert, bury your lightsaber, and I can run." Yet he's saying to Lars that to Owen, that he's gonna train Luke. I just, for me, there's just so many contradictions on that. I can go through.
Shall I address
other
that one
examples.
for you?
But yeah, go on, go for it.
Do you not think that Obi-Wan was keen for Luke to be a powerful Jedi, but he knew that if he went down there for daily sort of, Force lightsaber lessons, he'd draw too much attention to himself? So maybe he wants Luke to open his mind up to the Force, but without drawing attention to him and endangering him.
But surely that's why Obi-Wan's living in the cave then, isn't it? Because he wants to be hidden away from people. So you're telling me that he can't go in the cave where he lived and teach him? Like, and Owen won't even let him near Luke, but he says he must be trained. But how?
Alex.
It's just, I just find that baffling. Sorry, some of that.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, yeah, it is confusing, and part of me thinks that it's almost like maybe Obi-Wan wasn't ready to train Luke because he obviously has the guilt of Anakin. And the thing is, they address that later on, but they don't lead up to it at all. So there's no, like, yes, you see he's given up his Jedi ways, but you don't really dwell on why. And then all of too quickly he's drawn into a plot. So you don't feel that he's sort of struggling with this memory and guilt from that until much later on when they spell it out for you. Much later in the series. And it does feel a bit like if they'd have dwelled on his story a bit more, then that would have been clearer. Because maybe this is the thing, we know that Owen doesn't like the idea of him becoming a Jedi anyway, so we get that. But maybe he's just like, he couldn't be trained now anyway. I can't train him, and then maybe that changes. But again, none of that's really explored until right at the end. That's my thought. Okay,
that's some interesting thoughts there, and I think the challenge we have, of course, is we know that in Star Wars he hasn't trained him from this film, so maybe they're writing around that as well to make sure that the canon isn't too much, there's not too much damage to the canon. Okay, Mark, move on to your next one.
Okay, so we'll go from that. So Leia...
It's a comment about Leia and Obi-Wan that I find intriguing.
This is another one. So Leia now knows who Obi-Wan is. So obviously... so the actress is really good who played Leia. I liked her a lot. But now she knows who he is. And obviously they have a lot of bonding throughout this show as well. So my problem with this now is that there's no reference to them having a friendship or any kind of knowing each other from A New Hope. So in A New Hope, obviously, when Obi-Wan Kenobi dies, obviously Luke is devastated, but Leia doesn't say anything. She doesn't say that, she's not, upset or anything like that. Because when this bloke saved her all those years ago, twice from certain death. But she doesn't, in A New Hope, we're supposed to just pretend that Leia didn't have any feelings for Obi-Wan, wasn't sad.
How do you know she didn't have any feelings for Obi-Wan?
Well, because
he was the first guy. He was the first guy she wanted to get in contact with for help.
Yeah,
help me, Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
So she thought of him first. And would you not think that perhaps with all the years of battles and war that she's been through, that she's probably a little bit of a hardened soul by the time she gets to New Hope? That's
stretching, though, isn't it? If she likes him so much, surely she should be devastated when he dies. For me, it's fine if you want to use her in this, but it just cocks up the canon, in my opinion. So there's no deep. So if you watch A New Hope, right? There's at no point, apart from help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi, yes, I get that, right? But there's no other indication they have any other kind of relationship as well, or that they're friends. So for me, it just destroys the canon. I think that makes no sense to me at all.
I guess it's quite hard. I mean, one of the challenges is you're touching a very beloved character in a very established world, aren't you? So that is a bit of a challenge. It's like, hey, we're going to do a series to cover this bit that we didn't talk to you about much, So it would be quite hard for them not to touch the canon
Yeah.
in some ways. But I think you're right. Like, it can, these things get in the way of your enjoyment, don't they?
Yeah, and look, there's plenty of series that have broken canon, right? MCU is only sort of 10, 12 years old, right? But it's broken its canon a few times. The X-Men films from like Fox, right? There's no continuity in there at all. But and and the thing like with canon, that sort of thing, right, is you can let little things slide, right? Because like things were made years ago, or they didn't. It's like, for example, Marvel. Where was Captain Marvel at the start? They did. Well, the reason why she hasn't been around for the first 10 years because they haven't cast her yet and she hasn't got a film yet. That's why. But they've got to try and build it in as to why. So yes, you're always going to have little canon breaks and little plot holes in that. But most people can just sort of like look past that and say, yeah, you're going to have little quibbles. But stuff like this just completely changes stuff.
Do you not think, though, that rather than destroying canon, it just recontextualizes the kind of relationship between Leia and Obi-Wan in a different light? Maybe there's a little bit more nuance in here. I don't think it undercuts this at all. I mean, when you see Leia in the original trilogy, she's not this little girl anymore.
No.
A decade's passed for her nearly. It's about 9 years, I think. She's grown into this shrewd rebel leader. She doesn't mince her words. She's been working with rebels for years. Generally, when she made the message to Obi-Wan in Star Wars, she didn't have time to leave a long, heartfelt message. She was, about to be captured, because obviously this links with Rogue One's events as well. She probably knew that this message would fall into the hands of the Empire before it reached Obi-Wan. But then at the end of the message, there's a little flourish about her father's relationship with Obi-Wan. And I think it makes it more poignant, because when Obi-Wan hears that message, in the film, his expression shifts from interest into actual concern. He nods at R2, and there's kind of an understanding here. And it's actually, at that point, it's not the rebellion that makes Obi-Wan decide to help young Skywalker. It's Leia. And I think that relationship then makes sense from this series. Even though George Lucas would have no idea about the TV series, I think this is almost like the will of the Force that complements it beautifully. And I think, for me personally, I have no problem with this relationship whatsoever. And I think it's how it's been framed in the series. Maybe we've been quick to say, well, hold on, this doesn't fit with what's going on. But actually, I think it gives it more nuance than before. Now, that might be complete nonsense to you, but that's how I feel. I don't know how do you feel about that, Bobby?
I think I agree with what Mark's saying. I totally see his point of view. But it's a bit of a chicken and egg situation, right? Because if you look at A New Hope, she leaves the message. When he dies, 9 years have passed since she's physically seen him, right? Unless they do a season 2 and they're reunited again. And in that time, like you say, she's become a leader, she's become a politician, a senator. She has become quite hardened, and it's very much, it's a bit like the Queen. She grieved for Prince Philip in public for like a day, and then she just got on with the job. And I think that's what Princess Leia has been taught to do. And also she's got a lot of her mother in her, the sort of Padme diplomat kind of side, because Padme would have probably done the same thing. She'd have saved her grief for later. But then at the same time, we've got to remember, A New Hope is not... To us, it's a perfect film, and it forever will be. But it's not a perfect film. It was made on a low budget. He didn't know if the thing would even get made. I mean, really, we're lucky that thing was brought to life. And I think we, as original trilogy fans, we've really got to give some grace to what is coming after. And maybe just let some of those, so-called mistakes kind of slide a little bit. The way that I pass this off is the fact that, she's 10 years old right now. 9 years later, I mean, when I was 19, did I remember or have any affection if I bumped into any of my old school teachers that I absolutely adored when I was 10? Unfortunately not. I regret that now, later on. But you know, when you're in your late teens, you're in your late teens. But then when you're in your late teens, with everything that she would have had to go through and all the responsibility that she's had to take on, so you can find ways of kind of explaining and, like John says, contextualizing this kind of stuff. You know, more jarring is to go to J.J. Abrams and smack him round the face for having Leia completely ignore Chewbacca after Han Solo dies, and go and hug this girl that she's never met before. Like, what the hell was that all about? So I think when you find these things a little bit jarring, Mark, what I would say to you is immediately think of the sequel trilogy, and then this will seem pretty much perfect.
I like your benchmarking there, Bobby.
Very quickly, this has got to be seen as less a prequel to the original trilogy and more a sequel to the prequels. This series, I feel, is more for people who grew up and were fans of the prequel trilogy than for us oldies that grew up and are fans of the original trilogy. Because that's what this feels like a continuation of. It doesn't feel like some... You know, like Rogue One, the reason why we love that so much is because it was such a perfect prefix to A New Hope. Whereas this should be seen more as a suffix to... what do we call it? Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, Revenge of the Sith, yeah.
And the Clone Wars and the Bad Batch and all that stuff. It fits into that space on the bookshelf.
Thank you very much, Robert. I like that a lot. Mark, I'm going to go through some of these and ask you about these so we can kind of move on a bit.
Yeah.
Reva's 2 lightsaber stabs in the stomach. Who knows? I mean, maybe she can force heal herself like Rey.
But isn't that just really poor writing, though? Would you not agree?
I think it's a narrative. It's a narrative excuse for carrying her on in the story. I mean, it's just the way it is. You mentioned about old Grand Inquisitor getting stabbed in the stomach too. Well, he's a Powan, right? So Powans have 2 stomachs. So I can kind of understand why he got away with it. We also, you know, if you've seen the cartoon series, you know he survived. So I knew he was coming back.
But he just comes back, John, with no explanation. All of a sudden, he's just there again next to Vader.
Well, yeah, like I said, he's got 2 stomachs. He's got 1 stomach left to live on.
But how? If I don't know that, and I didn't know that, if you're a viewer, if you're someone who doesn't know the canon to that degree, right, on that scale, if you just look at this show, okay, so if you know the canon, fine, and I'm guessing everyone does. I know quite a lot of it, not everything. You probably know a bit more than me, but there's just no reintroduction for him. He just turns up and goes, "Oh, hello, I'm back." Like, well, I mean, from nowhere.
Darth Vader, Anakin, had both his arms, his legs removed and burnt up, and he still survived. I think there's a precedent here for Siths having such a will to live. You know, Darth Maul got cut in half and came back with spider legs. I think there's definitely a precedent being set here that Siths are pretty robust, and their lust for revenge keeps them going even if they've been stabbed a few times. I think that's not knowing what Powans can do from Utapau. It's knowing the Sith are these kind of, you know, they cling on to life as much as they can. I almost mentioned a Star Trek word, didn't I? Bobby.
Yeah.
The Grand Inquisitor says it when he reappears, and she's looking at him like, how? And he says it, doesn't he? He says something like, you know, revenge does wonders for one's will to live, or something like that. And, you know, you could take that as a double meaning. It could be referring to her and how she survived in the first place, or referring to him, referring to Vader, Palpatine in future films. So he does say it. So he does, you know, sorry, Mark.
So, I mean, that's my thoughts too. But I do agree with you about why doesn't she just like wait till he gets into his vacuum chamber without his suit on and just, you know, flick it to cook for 15 minutes, or just put a lightsaber through it. Then I think
she needs to learn some lessons from number 3 in You Only Live Twice, or whatever, Goldfinger or whatever it was. One of the Bond films that we watched in the spa. Thunderball. Yeah, exactly.
But I think again,
wait till Darth Vader's on his massage rack.
But I think, you know, I don't think Disney. Well, I mean, they probably know we do expect their fans to pick it apart as much as we do. I think it just makes for a more interesting story to have her do this rather than like, oh, it's Tuesday afternoon, I'm going to go up and just turn his vacuum chamber up to high. And I think that's what I mean. I know it's annoying, Mark. I know it creates this situation that's annoying, but I think that's probably why they've done it. And we know that Vader survives. This is the biggest challenge of this series, isn't it? Really, we know all these characters survive. How do they deal with the tension? And I think what they're trying to do here is build on character rather than create tension through dangerous situations. What more points do you have, Mark, that annoyed you? Come on.
Okay, so Vader says that. I can't speak today. Excuse me. So Vader says that he knows that Reva all along was the girl from Order 66. So he's carried on this sort of pretend mission he's on for the last 10 years. So he knew all about it this time. So, and then again he stabs her, but he just doesn't kill her. Like, he's known for 10 years that she wants to kill him. So he's supposed to know all this. He says, I knew it was you all along. So he's known about her plan all along for the last 10 years, then stabs her and then just leaves her.
Well, the thing
Why?
is, Palpatine, if you read a lot of the comics, and I know you shouldn't have to watch this, but Palpatine's quite a big fan of throwing all sorts of other Sith in his way to challenge him, test his strength, see how strong Vader is. I don't think Vader, and we can see this from that scene where he nicks a lightsaber using the Force, I don't think he's that concerned. I don't think he's worried by it. I don't think it really troubles him. He doesn't perceive her as a danger whatsoever. To him, she's a little mouse running around his feet. Do you see? I don't think the fact he knows it is better because then he's aware of it. But I don't think he's even concerned about it. Vader is a ridiculously strong Sith. We've always known that. And I like the fact the series kind of expands on that a bit because he was never particularly. I don't think it seemed as much from the original films how strong and how effective he was. We kind of got a taste of that at the end of Rogue One, didn't we? That was an amazing scene with him, and that kind of wrote or described his actions more. When it came to this series as well. But again, it's narrative ease, isn't it? It has to be this way to make the story more interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next grumble. So when Obi-Wan's, I think it's episode 4, when he goes and rescues Leia again, and he gets rescued by the I don't know the name of the rescue ships that come and save them. They're the same ones that are in Empire Strikes Back, the speed things with the guns on them. Help me out. The speeders that tie the. Help me out here. So in episode 4, when they are rescuing Leia again, the first bit that I think is ridiculous is that Obi-Wan has got Leia under his cloak as if to try and hide her. So you've got these 2 pairs of legs, his adult legs, and then 2 pairs of kids' legs, and he's trying to hide her under his cape, which made no sense to me at all.
It's a bit absurd, isn't it?
It is massively absurd, yeah.
I mean,
But that
it's just
Obi-Wan's
stupid.
trench coat plan is dumb as hell, and that's the point. Is an article that was written recently about this episode, and I think Star Wars usually has these weird things in it. That's kind of a Lucas style, isn't it? I mean, Bobby's holding up one of the weird puffins. I can't remember what they're called now. From
Porgs.
The Porgs. That's it. The Star Wars always had this kind of slight vein of weirdness to it, and I think it's quite a funny scene. I quite enjoyed the humour of it because you're right, Mark. It is ridiculous that no one sees him with like this lump out the side of him. But eventually he does get caught, doesn't he? And that's the whole point of it. It only works for a bit. Possibly he's using the Force to, make himself seem less obvious. He's influencing the mind of all the Imperial soldiers around him just to ignore him, like a sort of stealth cloak. But I think it's I quite enjoyed that because it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, I had
Also,
a good chuckle.
it is a bit Benny Hill, that scene, because if you watch it again, they literally just run around in a circle. Like, it's on the same very small set.
Yeah.
Like, they literally just run in a circle. But it's fine.
Just put the music on.
At the end of the day, kids have got to watch it as well. I mean, cover their eyes when Obi-Wan later at that checkpoint slices that guard in half. That was so cool.
That was great.
Yeah, but I mean, This is a bit like that scene in the factory on Geonosis when they're avoiding the choppers, isn't it? It's ridiculous, and all the scenes of C-3PO having his head cut off and replaced by a battle droid. All these things. I think I quite like that element of silliness in Star Wars because it kind of it's not all doom and gloom then. But again, I can see why it annoyed you, Mark, because it was a bit silly and ridiculous.
Yeah.
And
also if we carry on with that scene, so they're rescued, okay, and the starfighter, whatever it is, that comes in and they jump in it and fly off. There are no X-wing around. This is supposed to be like the Grand Inquisitors, like headquarters, right? One of their
X-wing. You mean TIE fighters? Do you mean?
TIE fighters? Sorry, TIE fighters. So it's
on Nur, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be like one of their strongest sort of like bases where the Inquisitors live, or their bases. There's not one X-wing anywhere that can chase them.
TIE fighter.
I keep doing that shit. Sorry, TIE fighter.
We know what you mean.
Yeah, there's not one TIE fighter anywhere that can chase them. Really? And then she says, "Oh, I've put a tracker in the robot." Well, why did you put a tracker in the robot? Did you know they were going to escape? Did you plan them to escape?
I mean, if she put a tracker in the robot, then she'd want that spaceship to fly away so she could follow it. So then she probably wouldn't chase it down with TIE fighters, Mark.
Yeah, but no one knows that, though, do they? That's her plan. She doesn't say that at all.
But she may have issued an order of command before then.
There are parts that feel very much like Darth Vader is being like a textbook villain, like a Bond villain, actually. In the it's very much like, I'm going to tell you my complete plan, and then I'm not going to quite kill you because it's like that. So it does feel a bit like that in parts, and maybe that would change when we get a new harder Vader later on. But yeah, there are bits that feel very much like he's only done half the job and he's just left it.
Yeah.
But again, going back to Bobby's point, this is a story written for children, really, or it was originally.
Yes.
And it was based on a very famous structure of fairy tales, wasn't it, Star Wars? And so the villain's got to be a classic villain.
Yeah, but is there an excuse to be this sloppy, really?
Yep. Okay. Well, I think what we need to do now is move on to what we thought went well. I think it's time we looked at the positives here. So, Alex,
I've got more.
Tell me some things you thought went well with this.
You'll have to include them in as we go, Mark.
Yeah, okay, then, fair enough.
No, I mean, yeah, there would. So I think the point is there are definite flaws, and I think looking at it critically is really difficult because actually we probably shouldn't look at it critically because it's meant to be enjoyable, a bit of enjoyable fun, and I feel like if you look at it that way, you give it a pass on some of the details. I actually really enjoyed. I enjoyed the storyline, even though bits of it didn't quite pick up. I did enjoy it because at least it meant that every episode something moved on and something happened, which some of the other TV series like Book of Boba Fett, for example, they didn't do. And I really felt like in every episode we felt like we were moving forward in both the story and some of the character development. So it did feel like we were making progress. I wish we had a bit longer than 6 episodes, but I do feel like when you pick it up in episode 5 and 6, it's so much more developed. The characters are so much more developed than the start that you feel like you've achieved something. So I did really enjoy that. I do think they should have renamed it to how Obi-Wan got his mojo back, because I feel like that would have been a lot more. We would have been like, oh, I see, okay, this is what it's about. Whereas instead we're maybe sometimes coming in for too serious, and it's like, no, just say like he's lost his mojo. What's he got to do to get it back? Oh, he's going to chase around the galaxy trying to catch Leia. And she's just going to miss him because she's a little toddler and he's a bit big. But anyway, I wish they could.
Powers vibes.
Yeah,
now.
very Austin Powers. I wish if they'd have just painted out with the 60s style lettering instead of the serious, Jedi wording. Anyway, so I feel like that would have then we would have been like, cool, I get it now. This is good. I really enjoyed. Actually, I really enjoyed the story of young Leia. Once we ignore the plot problems with her, I actually really enjoyed it because we've got to think about the future of Star Wars, and you've got to think about getting new people into Star Wars. Because the thing is, it's like, there's old folks watching Star Wars is fine, but you've got to be encouraging new people in. And I feel like with young Leia, they actually did really well, and I could see that progressing over a few seasons. Not necessarily in this. Not necessarily in this story, because I just don't think there's much more to do about Obi-Wan. But I do think it's something that we could see a spin-off going forward, where maybe she goes and solves a problem or something like that, and then comes back with some story. And I feel like that could be quite an interesting series in the future.
There's a lot of stories in even in the new canon of Leia as a young Senate student and teenage Leia and so on. And I agree with you. I think I'd really like to see a series where Leia is going up and becoming the senator, and the first hints of the rebellion coming with Mon Mothma and a young Mon Mothma. There's so much material they could draw from that. And the rumours of casting Millie Bobby Brown as sort of a Leia of that age, because she looks so much like her and she has the same feistiness as her.
Nice.
I think it would be really cool as well.
Yeah.
Bobby doesn't agree with me, but she looks very different in real life as she does in Stranger Things. But she also has that kind of feistiness to her as well.
Yeah,
I agree with you, Alex, and all of that. Actually,
I do think it's.
I think, I think I tend to gloss over the problems from the enjoyment of the program as well. So it kind of matches how I viewed it. Bobby, what about you? What did you enjoy about the series?
Like I said, the return of just great lightsaber fights. I thought the lightsaber fights in the sequel trilogy was so disappointing, given that you had a couple of younger actors, and I know Daisy Ridley had trained so hard for those films, but the choreography of those lightsaber fights was just garbage. And this was just a return to all the excitement and threat and menace of the fights from the prequel trilogy. Leia, absolutely love that. I told you guys before we even came on, and I also would love it if they did a spin-off series kind of exploring her growing up, becoming a politician, maybe some of the Jedi training that she would have gone through, and then she obviously at some point decided, no, that's not for me, this is where my life needs to be, in servitude or whatever. But then at the same time, just think about what Alex was saying about bringing, you need to bring a new generation through and so on. I mean, you think about Star Wars, part of the problem and part of what's polarising the fan base is the fact that we keep riffing off the original trilogy and the Skywalker story. The Skywalker saga was meant to have been done with the sequel trilogy, and yet now we're going back and we're filling in all these little gaps and so on. And I'm actually quite excited for Taika Waititi's Star Wars project, and when we finally get to see that, because that's taking us away. Taika said, like we're done with the Skywalker stuff. We need to get out of that, and we need to move the story to other parts of the galaxy.
His story is kind of prehistoric Jedi, isn't it? It's way back, even before the High Republic and all that.
Yeah,
Darth Revan, even before that.
But I think that's really more where they need to go, rather than just keep going back to all of this all the time. Because then what happens is you end up upsetting people like Mark, and you polarise everyone, and then you get the cynics saying that they're only doing it to get subscription numbers up and so on. I won't go into that because it's another big can of worms.
Yeah.
But and I'm being negative again. Sorry. Anyway, so things that were good. Darth Vader was terrifying. I like that they kind of continued the tone set in Rogue One, because, for me, that is my favourite scene in that entire... I mean, I love Rogue One, but that scene with Darth Vader at the end where he just comes and absolutely kicks the bejesus out of those rebel soldiers. I'm trying so hard not to swear. But they carried on with that type of Darth Vader in this. Although he was a bit emo at times. that Obi-Wan and Anakin definitely are not friends anymore. I kind of got that vibe from this somehow. And it was really cool to see them face off, because you knew that there was a fight missing from canon, or what we've seen on screen, because on the Death Star, Vader does say to him, when we last met, you were the master, I was but the learner, now I'm the master. And it was kind of, what was that fight then? That and we finally got to see that. So yeah, look, overall, was it necessary? I think one of the actual big problems with this series is that there are no stakes. We know Vader's story to his end. We know Obi-Wan's story to his end. We knew that Leia was going to be fine in the end, because we know her story. So that the stakes are very low in this, and I think it's very hard for them, unless they bring in new characters like they did with Rogue One. Rogue One, the stakes were very high, because they introduced new characters who we didn't know, and although we kind of knew the ultimate journey, it was so well written. We didn't know what was going to become of them, because they had nothing to do with the future trilogy.
Yeah, that's true.
We'll see more of an Andor, I presume, won't we?
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. It's like, people are like, well, what's the point of Andor? We know that he dies in Scarif, but if they bring some of the magic that they brought to the writing of Rogue One to Andor, which I guess they will. I don't know if it's the same team. I have to look it up.
Well, it was Gary Whitta that wrote Rogue One.
Yeah,
Right.
It's Tony Gilroy is the showrunner, and he was brought in to finish off Rogue One from Duncan Jones in the film. So yeah,
You and Gareth Jones.
Gareth
Evans.
Jones.
Gareth
Sorry,
Gareth
Gareth Evans. Sorry.
Gareth Ennis, isn't
Some Welsh bloke.
it? Gareth Edwards.
So, yeah, you're right.
John's brother.
John's brother.
Look, you. Check it out.
So yeah, but look, it overall it was good. So there we go.
How about you, Mark? Can you find the good in him?
Yeah.
Can you find the good in him?
So
Little Star Wars reference there.
yeah, I know. One of the bits I did like actually was, I think it was episode 5, when they to and fro from the past and then and the future. So there was that duel. So I think that scene was kind of like Hayden Christensen could actually be seen in the series, but
Yeah.
there's that fight that they have the training lightsaber battle, and I just thought when I was watching it, I quite liked that, and I do think that Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen have got quite a good chemistry about them. That was one of the best things I thought about the prequels, and I just thought that like all this like stuff we get in the series with Reva and and then like there's one rescue, then another rescue. I would love to have seen some flashbacks to like the Clone Wars, because then you could have had them I think this series could have been really good as a character study of them both, and like how they sort of fall out, and I really think it could have been like if the focus was just on them two, I think it would have been a lot better. And you could have had like some flashbacks to the Clone Wars, so things you don't see obviously in the prequels. Maybe sort of like scenes there where maybe everyone has doubts about him, and you can like see like he's not too sure. I thought that would be quite interesting. Do
you think maybe they'll do that in another
well, they
series?
Could do, yes, they could do. That's fair.
I'd like the idea of a TV adaptation of the Darth Vader comics where he is hunting down the Jedi and he meets Dr. Aphra. Because you could then do loads of flashbacks back to the Clone Wars and back to the prequel trilogy.
And you could have a nice little cameo from Ahsoka in that, with what's the actress's name who plays Ahsoka?
The voice
Rosario
actor or the
Dawson.
live action
Rosario
actor?
Dawson, thank you. Yeah, you could have a nice little cameo with her in it, So I said this is why I'm so frustrated by it, because all the material
This is what went well, though.
No. Sorry, I'm going back to negative again. Sorry. So I liked that play between them. I like the interaction between them two, and that's probably about it.
I really liked. I mean, for me, that the series hung on that final fight for me with Anakin and Darth. I mean, that was what really satisfied me, because the scene where The bit where Anakin is fighting, sorry, Darth Vader's fighting him, and Ewan McGregor, God, I'm getting tired. Sorry, chaps. Where Obi-Wan slashes his helmet on the right hand side with a lightsaber, and now we finally see how he got those scars, or potentially got those scars on his head. When you see the old Anakin being demasked in Return of the Jedi, and the fact that Ahsoka fought Darth Vader in the Clone Wars, and she did a similar thing. She split his helmet open on the left, but without actually harming his face. What I liked about this was the fact they had Hayden Christensen's face, but also his voice mingling with the vocoder of Darth Vader. That was so satisfying, and the fact that when Darth Vader was talking about how he killed Anakin, and actually when he turned around to I'm getting goosebumps now. When he turned around to Obi-Wan and said, "No, you didn't kill Anakin, I did." As he was saying that, the light on his face went from blue, the compassion of telling Obi-Wan, "No, you didn't kill him, I did. I killed him," and it went red, showing the dark. That, I mean, whether it was intentional or not, that was just so affecting. That scene was my favourite scene of the whole series, and was the payoff, I think, for the original trilogy fans.
Yeah, it was definitely the payoff.
And the sadness. I mean, this is where Ewan McGregor's acting really shone. The sadness, knowing his friend was finally dead. I've started to well up now, really. And actually, I know it sounds silly, but it was actually quite an emotional moment when he met Qui-Gon Jinn in the desert as well. Because then you know that Obi-Wan, we know this already, but it really felt like we now know that Obi-Wan was not on his own all those years in the desert before he met Luke. Talking to his old mate Qui-Gon with the same sort of humour. That for me was what really sold it for me. That episode, was it episode 6 or episode 5? That scene.
6.
6. Yeah. Is what sold it for me. And I kind of, for that scene, I could kind of forgive all the flaws that came before it. Really. Let's talk about the cast.
I've got a quick one.
Say again?
I've got a quick one, which is
it's
gripey, but we won't go into detail. It's Qui-Gon Jinn's CGI. It was very much Uncanny Valley. It was not quite Qui-Gon Jinn, but it was Qui-Gon Jinn. Because they had to de-age Liam Neeson, didn't they? And because he obviously he doesn't age when he's a Force ghost.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, it was very much like someone had kind of just sort of breathed on the lens and just sort of smudged it a bit.
A little bit of Vaseline.
Yeah, exactly. It did. It really felt like that, and it did put me off because I was so pleased that he was there, and then I was just like, oh damn it. But
I think
anyway, let's carry on.
Disney has lots of cash, but maybe not as much budget for TV series as films, perhaps. But yeah, okay. So let's look at the cast members. Alex, tell me who you enjoyed in this cast.
So I enjoyed a lot of people. Honestly, I watched it for Ewan McGregor. I think that was the thing. If he wasn't in it, I mean, it wouldn't be a great TV show about Obi-Wan. But I would have been very much more meh. But if they'd cast someone else, I just think because they put Ewan McGregor in it, it was awesome. And it's amazed how little he's aged. He's just one of these people. I mean, it did help that he had a full beard as Obi-Wan, and then he's got one now, so that helps.
This is set 9 years after the Revenge of the Sith, isn't it? So 9 years as an adult, you can get away. I mean, looking at the 4 people on this podcast, I mean, we're retaining our youthful vigour, and I can understand a little bit. And also, speaking from experience for me and Alex, a beard can cover a multitude of sins, can't it?
Oh yeah, beard's amazing. They get rid of several chins. They're really, honestly, they're brilliant. And if you've got the right shaped head, lack of hair, I'm becoming a fan of it now. So I'm getting used to that. So yeah, we could do the aging gracefully. If we were obviously had a Hollywood bod as well, then yeah, we would be the same as you, and you just wouldn't be able to tell us apart. So yeah, I'm not sure who's got the Hollywood bod. They're kind of trying to show who's best there on the camera. It's probably best this is just an audio podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. So go back to the characters. I loved little Leia. is it Vivian Lyra Blair?
Yeah.
So I loved her and her role, because it was very clear what she was meant to do, and she did it really well and got everyone behind her. So I really loved that. And I need to say a big whoop for Kamal Nanjiani, who was just absolutely. He was so funny as Haja. It was just it. You're right. He's annoying, but it lit the scene up, because he just, we were having real despairing moments, and then he was the comic relief, and I just loved it. And I just loved the bit where, he said, you'll get her home, and he was like, well, doesn't mean much as a crook and I was just
Jedi.
like, that's it, and a fake Jedi, and he was like, it'll do, and I cracked up about that. I thought that was brilliant.
He was the only thing that took me out of the whole Star Wars loop. Really, I felt like, he's a known actor. I wasn't a fan.
No,
nothing against the guy, but it just took me out of the Star Wars.
100% agree with John on that one. 100%.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it was just me, but I just enjoyed it, because it lit up an option of non-Jedis helping, because we talk about the rebels, and we do explore that a bit in this thing. But yeah, you're right. I mean, you're absolutely right. It's like, would you pretend to be a Jedi if you were being hunted down and killed? Probably not a great choice. But I don't know. It just made me chuckle.
Bobby, how about you?
I like Kamal Nanjiani, but he really did take me out of this. So I would have cast someone else that was unknown, to be quite frank. Just very quickly, Ewan McGregor was fantastic as Obi-Wan. He really got back into the character. Loved it. Want to see more of him. VLB, she absolutely brilliant. I want to adopt her. Rupert Friend. I didn't realise it was Rupert Friend. I just kept looking at that Grand Inquisitor, and every time he popped up onto the screen, I just was thinking of John. He just looked like John.
What? There's another white ball bloke here, guys, for you. See.
Yeah, no, but
I didn't like his voice, Rupert Friend. He's a good actor, but it didn't work.
He is a good actor. It was really good to see Jimmy Schmidt's back, and Joel Edgerton. I don't know who was inspired to cast him as Uncle Owen in the first place, but absolutely perfect. It's like, I really love the way he does his gruff voice and all the rest of it. Indira was fantastic as well. Just no one really in the cast that I've got any gripes about. Everyone did a really good job with what they were given, and you could see that people had worked hard on this. So yeah, there we go. Mark?
I don't really have much to add. I think I pretty much agree with everyone here. Enjoyed McGregor, although I thought he was all right. Maybe some of the emotional bits he struggled a bit, though. I thought the girl who played Leia was really good, and that's about it. Yeah, I can't really.
Young Luke was a bit rubbish.
Sorry?
Young Luke was a bit rubbish, though.
I mean, it's a kid running. I mean, he doesn't really have any
child
lines,
actor,
does
though.
he? Yeah.
It's a bit of a gamble, isn't it? A child actor go either way, really. I'd like to just mirror everyone's opinions about all you've talked about, but I'd also like to mention O'Shea Jackson Jr. as Rocken, who was the kind of the engineer with the beard, the leader of the rebels, that was trying to fix the spaceship. I thought he was a really interesting character. We don't see much of him, but I think I'd like to see more of him in future series. He was. I mean, there are slight mirrors of Saw Gerrera there as well in his kind of nature. I just really liked him as a non-Jedi character, and I would read comics about him and see more about it. I just thought he was really interesting. I also thought, wouldn't it have been great to have Indira Varma playing Raver's role?
Yeah, I could see that working.
Because I think she come across a lot better because she was very good as a kind of a haughty Imperial soldier, Imperial officer. I think she would have come across really well as a Dark Sith, and she was really good in Game of Thrones as the Sand Snakes.
Yes.
And I think I think they missed a trick there. They could have had her as Raver and maybe someone else as Tala. My other concern of all the cast is for James Earl Jones, because that voice is so iconic. that I'm really concerned about him going. And I wonder if Disney are working on a similar, because they use this technology for Luke's voice in the end of Boba Fett, didn't they? And I wonder if they're working on similar technology for James Earl Jones, because he's only going to be here for a few more years, sadly, I think. And I wonder if they're going to use his voice, and it makes you really think about like what happens to like Peter Cushing. Do Disney own the digital likenesses of all these people after they've gone? Much like Stan Lee as well. He got really shafted by Marvel.
They just renegotiated that actually. On interrupting you, John. Sorry,
no, go for it.
Sorry, on Stanley, Marvel have just renegotiated with Stanley Estate and his family so he can do cameos again. So there'll probably be cameos, maybe more the animated stuff than the live action, but they can now like put I like pictures of him in the films, that sort of thing, and that. So he wasn't able to after he passed away. So yeah, I've read about that this week. That's interesting.
Okay, let's talk about briefly design and production, because the Star Wars series that we've been watching have so many iconic places to go to. What did you think about the design and production, Alex?
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. This was in the I was going to say this is in the not the Void, is it called? I can't remember what it's called.
The Volume.
Volume, yeah, this was in the Volume, wasn't it? I actually think they did a really good job. I loved the world of Daiju, is that right?
Daiju,
that's it. I love that world. It really had a good Blade Runner sort of vibe to it.
Yeah.
I'd love to find out more about that place because it felt like really close, and I just loved the aesthetic. So I think that was really good. It was really nice to see. So it was Darth's Fortress world, wasn't it?
Mustafar, yes.
Yeah. So because that's the thing, we don't get to see that in the films very much.
Well, to give you some background on that fortress, if you read the Darth Vader comics, there's a big backstory about how that was built.
Right.
And it was built by this architect who was basically influenced by a relic of the Sith. And it was designed to allow Darth Vader to see into the future and the past using this sort of Sith relic.
Oh, okay.
And that's why the structure of it. But I think, if I can remember, I need to reread it, but the architect did bad things and died. And there's a really cool scene where Darth goes back and sees Padme from the past, and it's a really cool it's a cool comic worth reading. But that design is in canon based on a story of how it was built. So it's really nice as a diehard fan to see that in the film as well.
It felt like there were lots of details that were included, not just as a nod, but because this would make sense. So I'm going to include this bit, and I'm going to include that. So there wasn't like, ignoring things like the hello there's, it felt like the places in Star Wars that they put us in made sense. They were real places, and it widened the world up slightly, which is what I wanted. So yeah, no, I loved it.
Awesome. Bobby, what about you?
I think it's quite small, so if you take out Tatooine, there wasn't really that much going on set wise, so it wasn't expansive. So I'm really looking forward to Andor, because that looks like they've done a lot of filming on location, and it looks like it's going to be a more kind of expansive universe. But production wise, in terms of cinematography and sound, it just looks fantastic, and it aesthetically would slot neatly in between Revenge of the Sith and Rogue One if you were going to be watching things in order. So I think they did that really well, and it looks like they really paid attention to all of that, the colouring and all the other stuff that you do when you're creating film. So yeah, it looked good.
Mark?
Yeah, it did look good, I have to say. You expect it. They are high budget sort of TV shows, aren't they? I agree with Alex. In the second episode, I really liked. Sorry, what was the name of the where he goes to rescue Leia from? the name of it, the area.
Alderaan. Oh no, Dayu, you mean?
Dayu, yeah, I like
That'll
that
be
as
the
well.
Dayu.
Yeah, I thought that was well. That reminded me a little. He was right about Blade Runner. I got a lot of vibes of. Do you remember the Spielberg film about 20 years ago?
AI.
AI, yeah, I got AI vibes from that. So
Well, I mean, Blade Runner has had so many influences design-wise
yes.
on films. You know, this sort of neon noir look to it. I mean, if you've played the games, it looks a lot like Nar Shaddaa as well, which is kind of this criminal planet as well.
Go on, sorry, John.
No, you carry on. Go
No,
on.
just my last thing. The only thing was, so the last Vader Obi-Wan fight in the 6th episode, I did enjoy that, but I just thought it was like another flat, rocky sort of
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that location, because
I just thought they could have done
there's
bit
a
more
lot of
inventive.
speculation.
Oh, okay.
If you've played Knights of the Old Republic 2, which I have, and you've seen Twilight of the Apprentice and Rebels, you'll recognise that planet. A lot of people think it's Malachor 5. So, you know, it could be a planet near Malachor 5. I think it's called Jabim, the actual planet they're on. But it could be like in the Malachor system. And I like the fact they're kind of linking it to the TV series and some of the games. But I also like the fact that, you know, the joke about Mark Hamill as Luke makes to Rey in the sequel films about Jedi don't lift rocks up, and there's Obi-Wan lifting. I mean, I thought straight away of that comment when he starts lifting those rocks up and pelting Darth Vader with them. Malachor 5 is also where Darth Vader and Ahsoka duel in Star Wars Rebels. So Vader's got history with that planet. And I wonder if it's got an evil Sith, a bit like Dagobah, like the Sith are drawn to the dark force on that planet. Because it also looks a bit like Exegol, doesn't it, from the sequel films where Palpatine has clone factory.
Yeah.
So I think they've really thought about that location, made it kind of dark and dingy. I like the fact they have Bracca in this planet, the old junkyard planet that's featured in Fallen Order. They go to Nur, which is the scene where Obi-Wan's swimming with his rebreather. So I'm not sure I agree with you about the expansiveness, Bobby. I think there were a lot more locations here than Boba Fett, Mandalorian.
I was just
maybe
focusing
Boba
on
Fett.
lightsabers, John. I wasn't really looking at anything. I wasn't looking at the place the lightsabers were in. Because also on a HDR set, it looks stunning. And the lightsabers really, you know, all the little
Popped.
LEDs light up on the... Yeah, so I'll probably watch this series again because Carolina hasn't seen it. And I'm just going to, tell her to sit in front of it.
I was just mostly glad that we weren't doing the whole thing on Tatooine, to be honest.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah, it could
Well,
have
they
been
kind of done
so-
that with Boba Fett, didn't they, as well?
Yeah. So, okay. So we've had quite a lot of discussion about canon. How do you feel about how this fits in with the Star Wars canon, Alex?
Yeah, I don't feel too bad about it, but I also don't feel like I need to learn more, if that makes sense. It's funny because actually you end up looking at the end of it where he sees Qui-Gon and then you think, oh, that'll be interesting, what'll happen? And then you think to yourself, no, it won't, it'll be boring. It's like one episode with him actually just finding out about himself and the Force. Actually, no, I don't need to see that, thanks. So I kind of feel like we've done Obi-Wan now. I don't think there'll be another. Yeah, no, I liked it, but I think that maybe that's why there was only 6. It's because they had to be quite careful because as soon as they once they finish that story, then they're treading on the toes of everything else, and I think they must have got to a point where like, no, don't touch anything else. That's it. That's as far as you can go.
Going to do too much damage. Otherwise.
Yeah, this is you have to stop here and you have to start here, and you can't touch this, and this. So yeah, it did feel like it was a bit trying to be careful on some bits. But yeah, no, I enjoyed it.
Bobby, you're thinking that you mentioned earlier on about how this is more of a continuation of the prequel trilogy. So for you, how would this fit into the canon? Are you happy with how it's worked?
Yeah, they did what they could. There's always going to be little mistakes and things that get overlooked and so on. I mean, come on, look, take your phone and try and make Obi-Wan Season 2, I dare you. You're not going to do any better than this.
Oh, I reckon I could.
I want to avoid. I want to avoid repeating.
Kevin Feige,
things.
call Mark, please. Now.
I want to avoid repeating things people have and
Yeah.
will say, but one thing that I would really, really love them to do, and apparently they are talking about it, is to televise the, or at least some of the Darth Vader comic series, because I love that series, and I really, really want them to bring Dr. Aphra to life, not just because she's fit. Well, actually, mainly
She's one of my
she's
favourite
fit.
characters.
So Lucasfilm apparently really, really liked Chloe Bennett for that role, which I
Oh, yeah.
from Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah.
So
She'd be brilliant.
Daisy. But I mean, if none of you, if I know John has, but Mark and Alex, if you haven't read the Darth Vader series, do it. It's
so
awesome. It is so good, and I think I would really like them to go in that direction if they're going to stick with this whole Skywalker stuff.
I want to mention one thing. We've got a whole section on Easter eggs here, but we're running out of time. But I do need to mention one, and I think Alex wants to talk about this. But there's one very, very cool Easter egg, which Alex talked about that. Go on.
Well, I can't remember what did I say. Oh, hello. Yes, the hello.
You just
there.
read it in the text.
Oh,
mate,
the hello
so.
there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
Hello there.
It's just iconic now. It's a meme that's turned into a bit of iconic thing. But it's just so
that.
iconic. The
I
fact
loved
that he said that to Luke, I lost it at that point. I totally went. But no, it was just so nice. And yes, some bits of it felt a bit forced. But Ewan McGregor can say hello there to any of us, and I think we'd all just giggle. I think how it would be.
Yeah.
I think we need to round up. We have talked a bit about what we'd like to see next. So Bobby's mentioned about a Darth Vader series and a Dr. Aphra series. We've also mentioned perhaps Leia having a sort of Senate the teenage years, or something like that, or Senate high school. I don't think we're going to. Personally, I know Ewan McGregor's very keen to do more Obi-Wan. He said so recently. I'm sceptical that we'll see any more Obi-Wan. I think they've rounded that off nicely with him going into the valley, into the Beggar's Canyon with Qui-Gon Jinn. Is there anything, Mark, that you'd like to see that we haven't talked about yet as kind of the next stage of this? There's nothing that's been announced, not Ahsoka's new series, but
I mean, from what they've been saying, it looks like a season 2 is quite likely. So from what I've been reading and the response, I think a season 2 is quite likely. If it didn't cost too much and they could do it, I would be more interested to see more about the flashbacks of them two in the Clone Wars. I don't so the idea is he's supposed to be on Tatooine now, guarding Luke. So if he goes off all these different adventures, who's looking after Luke or who's guarding Luke? Because surely the first series here is showing that he needs guarding. So I think there's a little bit story-wise you've got to do something about that. But I would be, I'd be more keen on like flashbacks and a bit more of a Clone Wars sort of flashback series. I think that would be quite good because I think if you look back on the on the prequels, we do see a lot of them working together. But like, there's so much if you look from the TV show, from animated shows that have not been in it yet, and I just feel like a bit more of them two at that stage would be quite interesting. I don't think we need to see Vader anymore because I just think it's just gonna tamper with the canon too much.
You need to read that comic, the comic.
Yeah, I know.
And then come back to us.
See, I think that's fine if it's like a Vader series and him hunting people. I think that's fine, but I think the interaction between him and Obi-Wan, you can't have that because again in A New Hope he says, a failed president's the first I haven't seen for a long time, So I just feel like you can't do another series of Obi-Wan and Vader. Do a Vader series if you want, or maybe an Obi-Wan, but I think doing them together will be very, very difficult.
So Disney marketed Obi-Wan as a limited series. So in Hollywood and film and TV, that's a classification or a demarcation for a studio to create a self-contained story like WandaVision. There was never going to be a season 2 because it was a limited series.
And arguably, you could say that. Interrupting you, sorry again, John. Sorry. And you can argue that Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness is more as a sequel to WandaVision as well. So yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to do a second series with Obi-Wan in, but they might have some other characters doing something else. But Ewan's up for it. I'm not sure Kathleen Kennedy is. I think they want to make it a bit more varied.
And the cast and the writers are well up for it, but Disney / Lucasfilm themselves are a bit hesitant.
Yeah.
If you get new writers, it might be good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're going to finish off there. It's been, again, a fascinating chat, and I always learn more from Mark, and it's nice to hear a different point of view. No, you've convinced me on a few of your points, Mark, as well. Okay. But I will rewatch this, and I still feel like this is my favourite spin-off series so far, even if it's not yours, Mark. So we'll probably come back and discuss more about the upcoming series like Ahsoka, and we have a few Marvel series coming up. I'd like to discuss Miss Marvel.
Oh, I've not watched it yet.
As well.
Let's look at that.
It's very good.
Is it?
Let's do some housekeeping again. So you can find me on Twitter if you need to at John PR Evans. You can find Alex
at Alex Hansford,
and Bobby at.
It's Bobby Rivella, although I'm not really on Twitter much these days. So you can also find me on Instagram at Roberto Rivella London.
Brilliant, and it's worth looking at his account because it's enough to make a grown man wet. So there you go. You can also find our show at playpausturn.show if you want to stream the podcast live, and we're all on all the different podcast catchers. Is that not correct, Alex?
We are, yes.
All of them.
Yeah, everyone.
This has been Play Pause Turn, and thank you for listening.